Hey everybody, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2023 Jeep Wrangler 4xe, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Smart Diode wiring kit. Before we do that though, why don't we take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. Before we jump right in and start talking about our diodes, I figured it'd be useful just to kind of touch base and refresh ourselves on the main parts that we're going to need to flat tow our Jeep down the road in the first place. There's going to be a total of 5 main components that you're going to need. First one's going to be the base plate, and what that's going to do is provide us with a solid and reliable connection point. That way we can hook our tow bar up to it. So tow bar is the second component. This is going to be the physical link that actually connects the front of your Jeep to the back of your motorhome. Third main part will be safety cables, and these are just there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep your Wrangler connected to your RV. Fourth main part will be tow bar wiring, and what this is going to do is transfer the lighting signals from the back of your coach to the back of your Wrangler, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main part will be a supplemental braking system. And what this is going to do is apply the brakes in your Jeep whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, helping to bring you to a more predictable and complete stop. This is a good example of how the diodes are going to work. So we have the left turn signal going in our motorhome, and it's sending that signal back here to our Jeep. So people know what's going on, everything matches up. So that's going to hold true for the right turn, our tail lights, as well as our brake lights. So we'll have all of our bases covered. And in terms of being able to do something like this, diodes are what I always recommend, at least 99% of the time. And that's because once they're installed, you're not even going to know they're there. Everything looks factory. They're really easy to set up whenever you are ready to flat tow. And, that beats, in my opinion, dealing with magnetic lights, which are lights that will stick to the body of your Jeep. And with these, don't even know how well that would work, considering a lot of these are fiberglass and not metal to begin with. And with those, you have to run wires up every time, take it all back apart when you're done flat towing, and then store a big box of wires and lights. So this just really simplifies things and, flat out works. When it comes to setting up, literally all you got to do is plug in the umbilical cable to the front of the Jeep and into the back of the motorhome, and that's really about it. There are a couple different kits available. Some of them, or one of them rather, is what I call bare bones. You get your wiring and your diodes and a couple ins and outs to make the install happen, but it doesn't come with a connector plug or a cable. And so you would want to use that kit if you already had those components, or more than likely you're setting everything up new, right? And so, for example, our Roadmaster Nighthawk tow bar comes with a cable and a connector plug. And so, you want to get that bare bones kit because you already have them components with your new tow bar. If you're getting a different tow bar or don't have those components, there's another kit available that comes with, the diodes and the wiring and those ins and outs, but it'll also come with a coiled 7 to 6-way cable to make that connection happen. With that said, if you want as well, this is a type of cable you would use if your tow bar does not have channels in it. So like on our Nighthawk here, you can see we have our cables running through there. So you'd want to use that in a tow bar that doesn't have channels. This will work with ones that have channels too, but to properly utilize those, you could always get the bare bones kit and then pick up a straight or hybrid cable separately. That way you can run it through your tow bar channels. I do want to mention the park sense feature if your Jeep is equipped with one. The way to tell, you'll have a button in your dash and you'll have small round sensors kind of integrated into the bumper. If your Jeep has that, it means you got the park sense feature, and this is the kit that you're definitely going to want to use. It's going to allow everything to function properly. Even if your Jeep does not have that, this will still work. So perfect example, our Jeep does not have that park sense feature, but the diode kit's doing its job and everything's working like it should. So if you're unsure to kind of cover your bases, you could grab this kit. It'll work regardless if you have the park sense feature or not. At the end of the day, kit you really can't go wrong with. You know, everything's gonna look factory for the most part, and it's super easy to use, so can't really ask for too much more. In terms of the installation, it's not too bad, not confusing or anything for the most part. It is time consuming though, just running wires and things like that. So set a little bit aside, time aside to get this done. But if you'd like to see how we did it, feel free to follow along. We'll go ahead, pull into the garage and get started on it now. To begin our installation for our diode wiring, what you're first going to do is take one end of your wire, bundle of wire, and run it through your bracket where you're going to have your connector plug mounted up. So I did that. Then you can take the rubber dust cover and we'll just push it on first, kind of get that out of the way. And then we can separate these wires. So just very carefully kind of cut in between them. Pull them apart a few inches. With the wires separated, what I like to do is just cut off maybe a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, kind of give us a fresh start. That way if you accidentally kind of damage a wire cutting into it, you can get it cleaned up. But now we're going to take each wire and strip the end of the insulation back a little bit. That way we can plug it into our connector plug. To get our connector plug hooked up, we're going to have 4 terminals we're going to use. This one will be labeled TM for taillight, so the brown wire will go to it. This one GD for ground, so the white wire goes there. This one is LT for left turn for the yellow wire. And this one's RT for right turn, and that's going to be the green wire. So we'll just start with that one. The way these work is you take the set screw and you back them out almost all the way, enough to get the wire, and try not to pull them all the way out because sometimes they're kind of a pain to put in there, or get back in rather. But take the appropriate color wire, push it into the terminal, kind of hold it in place, and then just tighten the set screw back down. So repeat that same process for our remaining wires. Here's what that connector plug is going to look like once you have all the wires plugged in. And for now, you can take the dust cover, put it over. Once we have everything done and we know it works, I come back in here and seal this up really well. That'll help prevent corrosion, but I like to verify it all works first. That way, you know, we don't have a big mess if we need to come in here and change some things up or whatever the case may be. So I'll just put that on for now and kind of loosely mount up our plug to the bracket. With our diode wires all hooked up and our connector plug, we can route these towards the back. So in our case, our diodes are going to have to get tied into our supplemental braking system. So make it easier, I'm going to route these up and into the engine compartment. So this is going to run up and follow that all the way along up there. So in the engine compartment, here's where our diode wirings that come up, and if you have to hook yours into your supplemental braking system like we do, make sure to give yourself enough slack to have some wires to work with. But what you're going to do once you get to about this point is carefully cut the white wire in half, all right? And the side that goes to the front, or to our 6-way connector, you want to keep that, strip the end of the insulation back, and then take a ring terminal, put that on and crimp it down, and this is going to be our ground wire. So the rest of the white wire that was still attached to the rest of our harness, you can just peel that off, strip it back, you know, just remove it from the 3 other wires there, and you want to hold on to that because we will use it a little bit later on as a jumper wire in the back. But with this one, what we're going to do is we have a ground stud right there. Remove the nut, and it kind of sits down in there a little bit. Not really a huge deal, but I am going to put a flat washer over it, just kind of, and I feel like it'll make a better connection almost. Put the ring terminal over it, and snug it down. With that hooked up, the rest of our wiring is going to drop straight down back to the underside of our Jeep. So here's where our wires drop on down, and that white wire that's still on this, do like I said, in our instance, this is just a short piece of it. I peeled the rest off a little bit further back. So I just wanted to mention that to avoid any confusion. But this is actually going to go into the frame right through this opening here. And, you know, when we're done, I'll put some wire loom on this and zip tie everything. But essentially, this is just going to run all the way through the frame, pretty much to the back of our Jeep. On the frame, you can kind of see a piece of our wiring there, and just runs back. See a little piece in there. And every now and again, you can get some zip ties around it to, you know, keep it secure. But essentially, it just pushes all the way back. And about in this area, on the inside of the frame though, our wiring is going to come out of a hole and continue on towards the back. Our wire is then going to come up, and when you're doing this, do your best to avoid any hot or moving parts, you know. And it's going to come back through here. Now, eventually, our green wire we're going to route over to the passenger side. But for now, we'll have our yellow and brown hanging here. Why don't we go up, get our tail lights removed, and start to get everything hooked up on this side. So up top here, to get our tail light removed, if you open up your door, there's going to be a fastener located right inside here. Inside, you're going to have this small panel that we're going to pop off. So you can take a trim tool, just going to pry underneath it, pop it up, and that'll expose a fastener beneath. It's plastic, so be careful when doing this. Make sure your socket has a good bite on it, but we'll use a 10 millimeter. And get it pulled out. That's the only fastener holding our taillight in, so we should be able to just pop this out, and we're going to disconnect it. Yours might look a little bit different. This has trailer wiring on it, so that's what this T is, but concept's the same, you know. Pull back on the red tab. Then push down on the center of it and separate the taillight. And we're going to repeat the same exact process over on the other side to get that one removed. With the taillight out, I was able to take our yellow and brown wire, feed them right up through the opening. And when I did that, I taped on that extra piece of white wire that we had saved. And that's because this is good. The white wire is going to be a jumper for a taillight signal, so from here to the passenger side. So what you're going to do is take the white wire, strip the end back, take your brown wire, cut it about the same, strip it back, that wire twist, and then these two you're going to twist together, and you want to make sure that you get them nice and tight, ensure a good connection. Then you can take a butt connector. The one that comes in the kit's a little different. This has heat shrink ends. It just holds up better against corrosion. Inside of the taillight pocket, not a huge deal, but if you want to upgrade, you can grab these here at etrailer. But you slide the end over it, crimp it down. And what I'm going to do, if you take that piece of brown wire that we just trimmed off, get a strip one end of that back, twist it, and since this is a larger butt connector, I'm going to double that wire over. That way it gets the butt connector gets a better bite on it. Put that in, crimp it down, and with these being heat shrink ends, I'm going to come in with my heat gun and seal them up. With that done, now we'll kind of get the other ends going. So I'm going to cut these to length, and we have more than enough wire to work with here. It is always good to have a little extra. Now, we don't need that much, so I'll cut them off and strip both ends back. Then on each one of those ends, you're going to take one of the included spade terminals, slide it on, and crimp it down. What we can do now is identify the brake light signal on our factory wiring. So this piece here that goes to our connector, it had some tape on it, and I peeled that off to expose that factory wiring and tested it, and the one that we're looking for is this solid yellow wire. All right, so we're going to cut that about in half, and we'll strip those ends back, twist them just like the others. Take the small terminal there, crimp it down, do the same thing for this one. Once both of these are on, what we're able to do is grab our diode. All right, so we're going to start with the factory wire closest to our connector plug. That will be car brake out. So that just slides over that terminal there on our diode. Car brake in, we'll connect the other end of the factory wire to it. Then if we grab our new wiring harness, try to get this untangled here. The new yellow wire, that's going to be RV brake. So that'll plug in there. RV tail, our brown wire will go to it. And then we're going to have one more labeled ground. And so I fixed that wire up already. In the kit, they give you a couple short pieces of white wire. One end, crimp on the terminal there. Slide that over. The other side, you're going to take a ring terminal, crimp it on, and we'll come in with a self-tapping screw and ground this out. So I'll find a spot inside here to do that, and then show you how it looks. So I went ahead and used that self-tapping screw and secured that ground to this piece of sheet metal here. As long as you're not going to drill into anything of importance and it's good, clean, thick metal, that'll do. And then on the back of our diode, there's some sticky tape. Peel that backing paper off, and I stuck it right here to the flange to secure it. With all of our wiring sorted now, you can zip tie it up and clean it up. And then we'll just reinstall our taillight the opposite way that we removed it. Back underneath, we can route our green wire and our white wire over to the passenger side. A little tricky to see, so bear with us, but pretty straightforward. They come down from the driver's side. And you probably see a little piece of it there. Essentially, it's just going to run on top of our this cross beam here. And so you can use zip ties to keep it secured. See a little corner of it there. It's going to go over and then up into the taillight pocket just like we did on the driver's side. Over here on the passenger side, essentially set it up the exact same way that we did the driver's side. I pulled their wires up into the pocket and hooked it up to the diode. And there's really only going to be one big difference. That's the color of the wires. So the factory wire that you're going to cut is this green one, solid green wire. So cut that in half, crimp on your ends, like we did. Car brake in, car brake out. And then the new white wire, that's going to get plugged into the RV tail section. The new green wire, that's going to get connected to the RV brake. And then, of course, we have our ground, just like the other side. And I just grounded it right there. Little different setup on this side, so I just stuck our diode right there. And if you see this black silicone, what you can do is once you have all these plugged in, you can run a bead of that across them. And it just helps them, from moving around a little bit and a little more resistant to vibration and keeps them in place a little bit better, at least in my opinion. So I did that. You can do that to the other side as well. And with that all done, we'll go ahead and reinstall this the opposite way. Now it is a good idea to test your wiring to make sure everything's working properly. So I just plugged in our cable here to a test box to run through all the signals. You can use your motorhome. Keep in mind though, if your motorhome has any issues, you know, it might mislead you into thinking it's something you did on the Jeep side. But with that said, we'll go ahead and run through everything. We'll go ahead, turn on our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster Smart Diode wiring kit on our 2023 Jeep Wrangler 4xe.